Hey folks, Brendan here from Bluelight, and today I'm going to take a look at challenging interview questions for those of you who are serving police officers who are looking for promotion. So PC to sergeant, sergeant to inspector, and inspector to chief inspector. Now, one of the tough questions which I know you could get faced with is from the competency of we are innovative and open-minded. Here's my sample questions with the sort of supplementary points that you should include from the behaviours at level 2. And one of the challenging questions that we've been utilising for the weekly workshops for the Enforced Advancement Group. This is a group of officers who meet once a week where we practice for 2 hours the sort of questions that you're going to get and look at all sorts of other conundrums to make sure that you advance in your career. But also in my one-to-one sessions that I've been doing, in particular this week, with a PC to sergeant candidate and an inspector to chief inspector candidate. And the question is, can you tell me how in the future you will encourage others to adapt to change? There's also another question which is similar to that, which is, can you tell me how in the future you will deal with those people who are resistant to change? So 2 very different questions which both could be answered, need to be answered in different ways, as opposed to what did happen, which is the candidate actually answered the question the wrong way. They answered the question hoping they were going to get. More about that in a moment. So here's 7 things for you. 7 things, 7 awesome pieces of learning which came out of those sessions. So the first one is recognizing the sort of curve of change. And it kind of looks something like this. So in any change process, you've got probably about 5% of people who, at the very beginning of that change, were already doing it. These are the innovators. These are the people who have already decided that there's a better way and this is it. These are the ones who help forces design force policy. So we don't need to worry about them because they're already on board, aren't we? And then you've got 10% will be your early adopters. So as soon as the new policy is out, as soon as the change is being announced, as soon as they're aware that it's going to happen, they're all over it. They love this kind of thing and they will adopt that change. Right at the other end, we've got our laggards. We've got people who just refuse to change. They dig their heels in with gritted teeth, and no matter what the change is and no matter how beneficial it is, they are going to resist it. You know people like that, don't you? And they are strong influences for this 10% who could easily be influenced by them and join that 5% of laggards. Is that making sense? And then we've got, if I've done my math right, 70% of our officers that we supervise or manage, they just need to watch how it's done. They're not resistant to change. They're quite happy to embrace it, but they need to see it working. And this is the majority, I would suggest. They need to see how this is going to work and how it's going to pan out. And look at what the mistakes that other people have made. So you want to make sure that these people here are looking at your early adopters and not looking at those people who are saying TJF. You know what that means, don't you? And the ones who are trying to influence change inappropriately. So this is one of the things that I'd like you to think about in any question around change in the future and how you're going to help others or enable them to manage any change process, is thinking about who it is you really need to focus on. So I hope that makes sense. Now, the second point, watch the question. Watch the question. So I alluded to this before. My PC to sergeant candidate, when I asked the question about, can you tell me about how in the future you will enable those who are resistant to change to change, or words to that effect. The answer he gave me was about how in the future he will enable all his officers to change. That's not the question. The question was about those who are resistant to change, these individuals here. How are you going to deal with those? So he didn't actually answer the question. So this particular individual had actually failed one of the boards before, and that's one of the questions that they failed on. No surprise, because they didn't answer the question. So that's tip number 2. Tip number 3, with forward-facing questions, there's a dilemma here for you, and it depends on the force, what the force preference is. Now, some forces are going to want you just to talk very generically about how you would do whatever it is they're asking about. Whereas what we've been focusing on in the Enforced Advancement Group is giving the answer a scenario, something you can hang your hat on. So give them an example. So for example, use that phrase. So for example, if the change were around. Now for the inspector to chief inspector interview session answer that we worked on, we looked at independent scrutiny groups, highly localized independent scrutiny groups around stop and search. And so that would be an example. So for example, if I were to introduce a independent scrutiny group, a highly localized one that's more independent and more local than an independent advisory group, the force-wide independent advisory group, this is how I would look to manage that change process. So you're actually giving an example, a future-facing example. And the reason why it's important to do this is because what I've found is that unless you do that, you just get this sort of wish list, this sort of woolly wish list of things that you'd like to do. And it's not very specific, and it's not very detailed, and it doesn't outline the how, which is a really important part of your answer. What else? Number 3, where there's so many different things you could do to help support and enable change. So there's cultural issues, communication issues, process issues, resources, viability, monitoring and assessing, and of course, you know, the people who are willing to change, the people who aren't willing to change. There's so many aspects to it, but you've only got 5 minutes to answer that question. So one of the things that we looked at was if there's 4 things, we mention those 4 things, and then we pick the one big thing. So what's the one big thing out of those 4 things? And then focus on that one big thing and talk about how you would actually implement that part of the change process. So with the inspector to chief inspector example, the one big thing was communication. So we looked at how we would ensure that the message that was being communicated was being consistent all the way through the ranks. The fourth top tip that emerged out of the practice sessions was the use of stories, lived experiences, telling stories about what's worked. So these people here, your innovators and your early adopters, they are not likely to tell the story of how a new policy has worked or how it has benefited them or how it has benefited citizens or communities or groups within the communities unless they're asked. Because they may see it as boasting, they may see it as something they're showing off a little bit. It may be viewed as that, or they may think it's going to be viewed as that. So you need to be the enabler behind that to get these people to tell a story. And if you're a manager, if you're a sergeant inspector or chief inspector, that's within your gift to get that person to talk about whatever it was that was successful, because stories are very powerful at influencing this 70%. They might not influence the 5%, but they might also nudge that 10% into the 70%. Does that make sense? So stories are very powerful, get people to utilize them. The 5th thing, the mechanics of change. The mechanics of change. So many times do I hear things like, I would speak to all the teams, I would have one-to-ones, I would get them to give me their thoughts and feelings on whatever it might be. That's the what, but where are the mechanics of it? How exactly are you going to do those things? Because if I'm assessing you, I want to be convinced that you're going to be an awesome sergeant and you can do these things, not by happy accident, but by design, by deliberate design. So that's why, as opposed to focusing very broadly on 4 things or 6 things or whatever it might be, we're going to mention those 4 things and then focus on the one big thing and explain in detail how we would deal with that aspect of change. Because you could speak for an hour about change and you're being asked to talk about it in 5 minutes. Now, also we talked about showing off a little bit. So I would go as deep as describing the types of questions I would ask of our laggard who's not changing at all and is digging their heels in. We talked about explaining how you would utilize things like cathartic questions versus catalytic questions. Okay, top tip number 6. I think we're up to number 6 now. 6. Structure. Structure. On several occasions when we've been doing forward-facing questions, my clients have gone straight into what they would do, and it just becomes this wish list. One of the things I advocate is that we utilize Simon Sinek, an organizational development thought leader. If you look him up on YouTube, you'll see loads of videos. There's a great one where he talks about the Sinek circles and how you would actually market or sell people an idea or a concept. And we can utilize that for our forward-facing questions, the same concept. Watch the video and it'll make more sense. But where we start is the why. So why is this competence? Why is enabling change so important? Why is it so important? Explain why first. And then you talk about what you'd do, but importantly also, as we've discussed, how you would do it. And then moving from there into what this will result in. So when we do these things, when I implement whatever it is, this is what it will result in. Does that make sense? So the 7th thing, the 7th last one, and I think I've alluded to this already, but I really want to emphasize this, is whenever you're asked a really open, broad, forward-facing question. So can you tell me how you'll encourage a culture of well-being? Can you tell me how you will enable change within the organization? Can you tell me how you will enable officers to be responsible for and accountable for their own workloads? These are really broad, woolly questions, which often result in a really woolly, broad answer, which is why I advocate hanging your hat on something and coming up with a for example. Now, be guided by your own force. You'll be thinking, oh, there's only one way to do this. No, there isn't. There's 50-something different forces in the United Kingdom. There's well over 50 forces in the United Kingdom. Trust me, one of the things I'm experiencing through all the coaching and the guidance I give to officers from all over the United Kingdom, and I'm pleased to say of Ireland as well, the island of Ireland, or Republic of Ireland, which, have I got the right phrase there? Anyway, so different. Every force is different. So your own force is going to have its own preference. Be guided by that. But I think there's a benefit to making your answer as specific as possible. And actually, I've had feedback from some of my clients to say that the answers they delivered, because they did have that specificity behind them. Is that a word even? Specificity? Anyway, the answers went down really well and they passed. So that's the important thing, folks. Passing. So there's a load of guidance for you. You might be reeling from it at the moment, thinking, my goodness, that's a lot to take in. Come and join us. Come and join us in the Enforce Advancement Group. And that's where we get a lot more time to talk these things through into practice. And you can watch the videos, the recordings of the weekly practice sessions in the Enforce Advancement Facebook group. So I look forward to seeing you there. Or you might be thinking, gosh, this must cost a fortune. It's £4.99 a month to join. £4.99. That's it. You get a short course and you get all of that experience, vicarious experience, and the lived experience yourself when you actually join the workshops. Price of a coffee and a snack. How about that? All right, I'll catch you with you soon. Bye-bye for now.